Hi darlings, I'm Anna and today we are crocheting a light and flowy poncho. Even though this piece looks delicate and detailed, it's actually very beginner friendly and I will guide you through the whole process step by step. This poncho is perfect for summer, layering over outfits or bikinis, and adding that effortless handmade touch to your wardrobe. It is also made in one piece, so no sewing is required. Let's start! Let's start with the materials first. You will of course need some yarn. I recommend using a sports weight yarn for a lightweight piece, and also I would recommend using yarn that is made out of natural materials because those tend to be softer, airier and more breathable during the summer. I am using Drops Saffron exactly, and this yarn calls for a 3mm hook. Usually every yarn has this label on it and you can see what hook you will need to use. This calls for a 3mm hook, but I will use a 4mm hook instead. If you size up, your stitches will be looser and your tension will be looser. If you use the recommended yarn, then you will get the correct tension, but you can size up like me or you can even size down. You will also need a pair of scissors, stitch markers and a darning needle at the end. So first, grab your yarn and we will start by making a slip knot. So put the yarn on your palm like this and then take your index finger and place it in this loop. Turn it upward, insert your thumb next to it and then get the strand that is below the other one. This is the strand and just pull through the loop. This is how you make a slip knot. Then get your hook and place it inside this loop and with the working yarn fasten. Now you can hold your yarn any way you'd like. This is how I hold mine. I wrap it around my pinky and then I place my index finger below the strand and it just moves smoothly. Then I hold onto the tail end. We will start by chaining, but before we do that, you will have to measure yourself and you will have to decide how long you want your piece to be. I made both of mine pieces elbow to elbow, so you don't need a measuring tape if you don't have one. And once you decide how long you want your poncho to be, you can start chaining. Now, how to chain, I will show you. You are going to hold on to the tail end and then you are going to yarn over and pull this strand through the loop that's on your hook, like this. Again, yarn over, pull through the strand through the loop that's on your hook, like this. These are the chains that we are forming. These V shapes are each a chain. So you are going to yarn over and pull through the loop and you are going to form chains until you reach your preferred measurement. So for example, for me it's elbow to elbow. And the best part is you don't even have to count your chains. You can just count them by 4 because the only important thing is that your number of chains should be divisible by 4. So after you count to 4, you can just start again and count 1, 2, 3, and 4, and just keep going counting from 1 to 4 until you reach your preferred measurement. So yarn over and pull through the loop that's on your hook. And repeat this process until you reach your preferred length. One very important thing that I need to say is that you should try to keep your tension loose, so make your chains bigger and looser, because when we are going to work into them, you might have to stretch it out a bit, and if your tension is tight, you won't be able to do that. So once your chain is done, you can again measure it to your body and see if it's the correct length. And then we can start the first row. We are going to start the first row by chaining 4 more, which will count as our first treble crochet. So do 4 more chains. And in the first row we are, as I said, going to place treble crochets. We are going to count back 7. This loop that's on our hook is not considered a chain, so don't count this. But starting from here, you are going to count 7 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, which, as I said, count as our first treble crochet. And then we are going to skip 3 more chains, which is the 5th, 6th, and 7th. And we are going to place our first treble crochet into the 8th chain. To form a treble crochet, you are going to yarn over twice. Again, count back 7, and into the 8th chain you are going to place, first of all, a treble crochet. So get your hook and insert it in this chain. Then get the working yarn and yarn over and pull it up. Pull it back up through the loop, and you should have 4 loops on your hook now. You will yarn over again, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over again. You will need to pull through the second 2 loops, yarn over again, and pull through the last 2 loops. Like this. I will show you again, don't worry. Yarn over twice. We are going to place groups of stitches. This is how I will call them, which means 2 treble crochets, 2 chains, and 2 treble crochets in every 4th chain space. So again, we will work into the same chain space where this treble crochet is already. Yarn over twice and then insert your hook into the same chain space, like this. Grab the working yarn from behind and pull up a loop. You should have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. You should have 3 loops on your hook now. Yarn over, pull through the second 2 loops. And then again yarn over. You should have 2 loops on your hook now and pull through the last 2 loops. And then, as I said, we are going to chain 2. So yarn over and pull through the loop and pull through. And then we are going to place 2 more treble crochets into the same chain space. So yarn over twice, insert your hook into the same space, chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop. Again, you have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2 loops, and yarn over, pull through the third 2 loops. And one last time, yarn over twice, insert your hook into the same chain space and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops that's on your hook. This is how it looks now, and these are the groups we are going to form all throughout the project. So we are going to start by placing treble crochets again, but we are going to skip 3 chains. So skip the next 3 chains. If you are unsure which are the chains, as you can see, this is where we worked into, and then you can just go by the top loops as you see it here. So skip 1, 2, and 3 loops, top loops, so 3 chains, and we are going to go into the 4th chain space. Yarn over twice, and into the 4th chain space you're going to place your hook here. Grab the yarn and pull up a loop. You have 4 loops on your hook. and you are going to yarn over and pull through 2 by 2 as we did before. This was one treble crochet. You are going to place another one in the same chain space, so yarn over twice, go into the same chain space and finish your treble crochet. Then you are going to chain 2 and finish with 2 treble crochets into the same chain space. As you can see, we have these, well, pretty big loops formed here, but when you stretch the foundation chain out, it kind of disappears. Okay, so we are going to form these groups all throughout the whole foundation chain until you reach the end. We are going to do one more together. So yarn over twice, skip 1, 2, 3 chains, and into the fourth insert your hook, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, yarn over twice, insert into the chain space, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Chain 2, and do 2 more treble crochets. Before you move on, check if your tension was right. If your tension was right in the foundation chain, then your piece should look flat. If your tension was too tight in the foundation chain, your piece might look something like this. So it will go up or it will even ruffle. And I don't think it can happen, but if your tension is too loose, then that's actually not so big of a problem. But if your piece is not flat, even after you stretch it out a little bit, then I would recommend starting over now, then later. Okay, so let's keep going, and actually I will leave you to it and I will see you almost at the end. So when you are about to finish up, I will come back. So you can stop the video now and continue skipping 3 chains and then placing these groups in the 4th chain. Good luck! I'm getting close to the end of the row. I am placing my last group of stitches, and if you count it correctly, you should have 4 chains left, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. I counted correctly, so I have 4 chains left. If you miscalculated something and your number is off by 1, so you have 5 or 3, that's not a problem. You can just skip 1 more if you have 5, or you can just skip only 2 if you have 3 chains. And we are going to place 1 treble crochet into the very last chain here. Just place 1 treble crochet in the very last chain. And then your piece should look something like this. To start row 2, we are going to chain 3. We are going to start each row by chaining 3, resembling our treble crochet. And then turn your work like this, and we will start working. We are going to place the same group of stitches in the second row as well, but this time we are going to place them in this chain 2 space. So where we chained 2 in the previous row, we are just going to go into this big hole, so it's easier than finding the chains for sure. Just go into this big hole and place your group of stitches, which means 2 treble crochets, 2 simple chains, and 2 more treble crochets. And then move on to the next chain 2 space. So you can find these spaces obviously between the 2 treble crochets to the right and the 2 treble crochets to the left. It's not hard to miss, but be careful, don't work in between the groups. So this is not a chain 2 space. These are where you see these V shapes in between the V shapes. So yarn over twice and place a treble crochet in the next chain 2 space and place another treble crochet, chain 2, and 2 more treble crochets into the same chain 2 space here. And you will need to do the same thing, placing these groups of stitches all the way until you reach the very last chain 2 space, and I will meet you here. You can stop the video and go in your own pace, and good luck. I just finished up my last group of stitches in the last chain 2 space, and from here we are going to find the top chain and we are going to place a treble crochet inside. So if you remember, we skipped 3 chains and then we chained 4 more. If you want, you can turn this piece around so it's easier to see. So these are the chains. We skipped the first 3 and then chained 4 more, and you just have to find the top chain and place a treble crochet in here. It might be a little tight. This is not mine, even though it seems like it. I have this little tensed up chain here. Here is mine, and then just place a treble crochet in here like this, and this will be our first corner. The third row is going to be pretty similar. Actually, it's going to be the exact same until the end. So the third row is going to be the repetition row, which we are going to do all the way throughout the project. So we are going to start again by chaining 3, which will be our treble crochet. Turn your work and place the same exact groups into the chain 2 spaces in here. Again, stop the video and you can replay the row that we did previously if you need more guidance, or you can just come back once you are at the end of this row. As I said before, the only difference between the second and the third row is at the end, which we are here now, and this time we only have 3 chains from the previous row. You still have to find the top chain, which for me is this one. Yeah, it's hard to see, but you can find it. So this is my top chain out of the 3, and insert your hook into the third and top chain and place a treble crochet here. And you are done with the third row. As I said, the third row is going to be our repetition row, which means you will need to do this row over and over and over again until you reach your desired width for your poncho. So I will leave you to finish the rest of the panel, which, as I said, is going to be a repetition of the third row, so you can just go back in the video and watch this part again. The important thing is that you start by chaining 3 and then just place the group of stitches in the chain 2 spaces, and then you will again end up with a chain 3 on the other side. Find the top of the chain 3, so find the top chain and place a treble crochet here. I ended up doing 17 rows. For reference, I ended up doing 17 rows for this panel. You might do more, you might do less, depending on your hook size and the thickness of the yarn that you are using, and also your preferences. So it was 17 rows for me. It might take you more time or less time, but you can stop the video and come back because we still have to make the other panel, which won't be an individual panel. So this is not how we are going to make the second panel. We are actually going to connect it here, so you don't have to sew them together later on. Okay, go ahead and finish up this panel and I will see you later. Here I am 17 rows later. I finished the last row, so all I have to do is chain 1 at the end, and then we can cut the yarn, leaving a tail like this, and then just pull the loop through and tighten it. And our first panel is done. Now you will need your stitch markers. I said you will need 2 of them, and now is the time. We will need these to mark where you want your neck opening to start and end. Now there are more possibilities. I would like my opening to be in the middle of my poncho, as a normal poncho would look like. But nowadays there are trends where your poncho is sideways. So for example, you place your neck here and then the rest of the material is just flying off of you or something like that. But I will place my markers something like this. If you also want your opening to be in the center, it's very easy. You can just go ahead and count the chain 2 spaces of the first row on both sides, and then you don't have to count chains or you don't have to take out a measuring tape. So you just go on both sides, chain 2 space from chain 2 space, like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth until you reach the wideness of the opening that you want to have for your neck. I don't want mine to be very tight, but I don't want it off the shoulder, so I think I will go for something like this. I think this would be perfect for me. So place your stitch marker in these 2 chain 2 spaces. This is the easiest way to do, but if you have any other techniques, feel free to do that. Okay, and now let's start the second panel. So turn your piece. I forgot to mention, but the stitch markers should be where the foundation chain is and not at the bottom where we finished the last row, because we will work the same pattern and we want the pattern to like fall down on both sides. So the V-shapes are facing downwards and we want to have that on both sides. You will need to find a corner of the foundation chain. I will use this corner where I started so I can tie a knot with the tail end, and maybe I can even hide it now. So just find this corner stitch. Mine is way too tight, so I'm just gonna go right here below it. Like this. And then grab your yarn. Place it on your hook like this and pull through these loops here. Now you will need to chain one to secure the yarn, and as an extra security I will just tie a double knot that I was talking about. You don't have to, but I always do this just to make sure that nothing moves. And now we will just mirror what we did on this side. So we will start by chaining 3, which counts as our first treble crochet, and then we will work the same groups as before, and we are going to work into the same chain spaces where we did the groups on the other panel. These chain spaces are pretty easy to find, as you can see here they are exactly, so it's not hard to find them. The usual chain spaces are smaller, and then I don't think I have to explain even further because you can probably see the same thing on your project as well. So let's start by placing these groups in the same chain spaces, but on the other side. So again, 2 treble crochets, 2 chains, and 2 treble crochets again. Yes, the hole is looking big now, but again, once you stretch it, it will disappear. Going to the next one, find a chain 1 space, do 2 treble crochets, chain 2, and another 2 treble crochets, and again. And just keep repeating this until you reach the stitch marker. Okay, so I reached my first stitch marker, which is here, and I will place my last group of stitches next to it. You can take it out if it bothers you. And place your last group of stitches in the next chain 1 space or chain space. And once you are done, you will need to do some calculations. Nothing hard, nothing complicated. As you know, we skipped 3 chains and worked into the 4th one. So we will have to count how many of these groups we have. So 3 plus 1, and then you can just count the number of groups again until you reach the other side of the stitch marker. For me, for example, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 groups, and the next one is where my stitch marker is, so it's 7. multiplied by 4 is 28. And then I will need to add these 3 more skipped chains, which is 28 plus 3, which is 31. If you don't want to multiply, you can simply just count how many chains you have here, counting the 3 and the 1 and then the 3 and the 1 until you reach the other side. I have 31 chains here between these two stitch markers, so I will need to chain 31. Once you are done with your chains, quickly check if they look the same length. For me, they do. So now we will continue working groups in the opposite side of the used chains, starting here where the stitch marker is. So again, take out the stitch marker if it bothers you. And then I will place my first group right here on the opposite side. Again, same groups, 2 treble crochet, chain 2 and 2 treble crochet. And this is how we connected the two sides. So now you will have to keep working across the row, placing these groups of stitches in each used chain space. And at the end of the row you have these 7 chains here, and you will skip 3, and into the 4th one you are going to place a treble crochet. Just be careful because some of the chains are hidden at the beginning because it's quite tight here. Place a treble crochet, and this is how we are going to form our last corner here. So we are done with the first row, which technically is row 0. I count this as a shoulder row or seam row because, again, technically the first row starts here where we also place these groups on the other side of your neck. Here is the neck opening. But when I talk about the 17 rows that I did here, I will include this row as well. So I count this as row 1, and the next row is going to be row 2. Okay, so again, this was the first row. Let's chain 3 and turn our work and start the second row. The beginning will be the same. You are going to place groups of stitches until you reach the last group of stitches from the previous row. When you reach the chain, you will start placing these groups in every 4th chain, as we did at the very beginning. So we have these 2 stitches here, which are from the treble crochet. Don't count these in. And then starting from the first chain, you will skip 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th one, you are going to place one of these groups. 2 treble crochet, chain 2, and 2 more treble crochet. Again, skip 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th one, place your 2 treble crochets, chain 2 and 2 treble crochets. Skip 3 and into the 4th one repeat the same process. If you counted everything correctly, you should be left with 3 chains to skip and continue working in these chain 2 spaces on the other side of the opening. Oh, and to make sure that you did everything right, you should have the same amount of groups of the opening on both sides. So just keep working until you reach the other side of your piece. I am finishing up the second row with my last individual treble crochet, and this is what we got. Starting from the third row, everything will be the same as before, so you will need to work rows back and forth, back and forth. Now you don't even have to do anything special, you just work into the chain 2 spaces even here, and you will need to do the same amount of rows as you did in the front panel, unless of course you want to do more rows or less rows, but as I said, I did the same amount of rows on both panels. So I will leave you to finish your whole piece. I will finish my 17 rows here, so 15 more to go, and I will meet you so we can weave in the ends together. Good luck, and I'll see you later. When you are done with your rows, we only have one step left to do, which is to weave in the tail ends. And for this, you will need your darning needle. So get ready, get your tail end, thread the needle. What I usually do is go down a stitch, and then I'm going to weave my tail ends here back and forth, because we have 4 treble crochets here, and I think this is the best way to hide it in this project. So let's see. I'm going to turn the piece. Now this is just what I do, but you can weave your ends in any way you'd like. So I will start by going through some loops, coming down on this treble crochet, and once you are at the bottom, you can just weave your needle through all these treble crochets at the bottom, like this, and just pull through. This is what it looks like now, and in my opinion this is very unnoticeable, but just to be sure, we are going to go back the other way without going under the very first hook. We are going to go over it, because if you go under it, then you will just undo what you've done. So skip the first hook, skip the first loop, and go underneath the rest. And if you want, you can repeat this process a few more times, going back and forth, but I'm just going to leave it like this and I will just cut the yarn short, and if you pull it, your tail should be gone. And then you will find all of your other tail ends and just repeat this process. For example, in the shoulder seam you will also have 2 tail ends, and this time I will weave in these horizontally. So I will go here through the chains and then find the very first group of stitches, and I will hide it here. And you will also have one at the very beginning, so you should have 2 corners and 2 tails in the middle. So go ahead and weave in your ends. And that's it, your lacy poncho is finished. I hope you had fun making this piece with me and maybe learned something new along the way. If you're new here, I write crochet patterns which you can find linked in the description, and I make tutorials for the easier ones, so even complete beginners can feel included. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I would appreciate it if you could support me with a like, and of course feel free to leave a comment letting me know what you'd like to see next. Bye!